Hi, I'm Danielle Dick, the director of the Rutgers Addiction Research Center. And today I am fortunate to be here with Kristina Jackson, who is one of the newest members of the RARC. She will be joining us to be the Associate Director of Epidemiology, Etiology, and Prevention. She's been on the faculty at Brown for a number of years, and so we are incredibly excited to have her be part of the RARC family now. So thanks for joining us, Kristy.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to begin my new position in less than, a month, just over a month.
So first, for those who haven't had a chance to meet you yet, tell everyone about your program of research.
Sure. When I started, I was a social psychologist and I studied stereotyping and skin cancer prevention. So I wasn't studying addictive behaviors. And then I got started in my area, the addiction research, because I started a postdoc with Ken Scher, which what drew me to it was sort of the application of health behavior theory and my love of just quantitative psychology. So this was an opportunity to work with longitudinal data. And that has sort of come through my entire career in that I have this sort of developmental framework. So I'm interested in looking at behavior over time, change. And so when I started working with Ken, of course, you start your postdoc and you have a mentor. It's a mentor model, and you work with them on what they're interested in because that's why you're there, is to receive your training from them. But when I kind of started working with Ken, his project was with college students, and I was interested in sort of a younger stage. So why do some adolescents have a sip of alcohol and, they're fine. they have normative development. They have no acute problems. And then other kids might be in their parents' liquor cabinet the next week. So what is going on that some people have sort of a more severe course versus sort of a more normative course? And so that is sort of the umbrella that my research falls under. And I have several different projects, but I think in a nutshell, if you were to say, what is your research about? I would say like the initiation and progression of alcohol involvement, like adolescence through young adulthood.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that we share. We've really been interested in this question of why. Why do some people go on to develop problems and others don't? And one of the things that I think is really fascinating about studying substance use problems is that no one wakes up one morning and discovers, oh my gosh, I've had an onset of, alcohol problems, or I've had an onset of opioid use disorder. There's usually this trajectory of behavior, both substance use and other kind of related behaviors that eventually lead to problems. And unraveling that, I think, has really interesting implications for prevention and early intervention.
Yes, exactly.
So what are some of the projects that you are most excited about right now?
So one of the grants that I have is an IEEE funded grant about exposure to alcohol content in the media. It is with adolescents. And so I think all of us are inundated by, images and references to alcohol on any kind of media. So I'm talking, TV, films, social media, especially for teenagers. And so I collaborate with someone who does a lot of media literacy, and we were kind of, brainstorming like, these media literacy programs in the field are not great. It's like an after school program, for 4 weeks, and it's delivered to elementary school kids, and, alcohol kind of an abstract concept for them. So we thought, watching these teenagers or anyone on their phone is kind of the time we need to do our intervention, is like grab them when they're coming across the content. And so we started delving into, what would a intervention program look like? And then we thought, we don't know anything about what they're coming across, how frequently, what they think of it. And so we kind of took a step back, and we're doing it's an ecological momentary assessment study. So EMA, which is multiple times a day. They provide responses to our prompts. And then they also upload content related to alcohol that they come across in the media, so that they naturally come across, and they can either take a screenshot or send us a video or an image, or just describe it in text. So we just finished collecting those data last week. We have 302 kids, teenagers, and now we have an awful lot of coding to do. So that's one of the projects that I'm really excited about. So I think it's got so many implications. You know, you can't pick up a newspaper or whatever people do nowadays. You can't look at the internet without coming across references to social media.
It is really interesting. I think some of the movements like Sober Curious, and as there have been more individuals in recovery who are kind of pointing out, once you start paying attention, you realize how alcohol and now increasingly cannabis are really everywhere. You know, you see advertisements, it's in the media, it's going through your social feed. It really is such a part of our culture. And so I think that work that you're doing is going to be really important for thinking about how does that affect teens, and then how can we essentially use that to help them better understand and make the best choices for themselves. So
Yes, exactly. And what we're doing now, it's when I said data collection is done, I meant the EMA, is we're conducting focus groups with some of the participants from the study to kind of get their ideas of like how we could intervene. So say like, you know, thinking back on your experience in the study, you know, what surprised you? What sort of things do you think we can do to help teenagers? You know, not necessarily reduce the amount of content they come across, but how they interpret the content.
yeah, that's great. So I know that you are bringing a whole series of different ongoing grants and projects with you to Rutgers. So do you want to talk about some of the other grants that you have going on too?
Yep. So I have a project that is it's an MPI with Jane Metric, and it's on cannabis messaging. And so this is something that obviously is very timely and across the nation, but particularly in states where cannabis is recreationally legal, so such as New Jersey. And it was sort of driven by the thought that there's sort of this artificial divide between recreational and medical cannabis use. So people who use it for medical reasons still use it recreationally, and those who use it recreationally might use it to treat sleep or anxiety, which are ostensibly medical reasons. So we were kind of interested in why do people use cannabis, and where do they learn about the effects of cannabis? So what makes them reach for cannabis when they're having sleep problems? And so this is it's a multi-phase study where we're doing some qualitative interviews of users and bud tenders and growers and healthcare providers. We're doing some direct observation of outlets. So this is, you know, Rhode Island just legalized recreational cannabis use, but Massachusetts has had it for a while. So we're sending research assistants to observe the outside and inside of the outlets, and to have conversations with bud tenders to kind of see what sort of messages are coming across. We're also doing some social media scraping and, you know, machine learning, which I know nothing about, but I'm hoping that, you know, the next couple of years, find some collaborators who can really help with that. And then we're going to do an EMA study similar to the one I just described. And so what I'm really excited about is that I think New Jersey is about 3 years behind Massachusetts. And so, you know, learning what we're learning in Massachusetts and then taking it to New Jersey, I think I can see so many possibilities for, you know, continuing this line of research.
Absolutely. And I know there's a lot of interest in really growing our cannabis research portfolio. There's a new working group that's just gotten started this summer that essentially is bringing together people who are interested in cannabis research. And so I'm really excited about the project that you're going to be bringing. And I agree. I think there's a lot of interesting ways that we could expand and think about projects that we could spin off of that now that you'll be in New Jersey. So other things that you're working on or excited about?
So along the same lines, we are also doing a study. It's a rapid response study for, again, in Massachusetts. And these are for the social consumption sites. So those are sort of like akin to bars. It's where people can consume cannabis recreationally in a setting. And so those are, you know, I think Massachusetts had a pilot program, and now they're just going to go roll it out full scale in the next year. So we want to be there to be able to see what happens. What do people think about it? Do they use it? What are the implications? So, are they showing up to these social consumption sites, having consumed alcohol? How are they getting home? Are they driving? Because we know the effects of combined cannabis and alcohol use are really even worse than a single substance alone. So that is something. And again, I think New Jersey is doing the same thing. So it was such a great opportunity to bring this similar project that way.
Absolutely. So we are very excited to have you joining us and being in a leadership role to help us think about how we're going to continue to grow and expand the RARC. But I would love to hear from you about what led to your decision to leave, obviously, an amazing place for addiction research, Brown, that you've been at for the last decade plus, to come to New Jersey and or come to Rutgers, and what you're most excited about in starting with the RARC.
Yeah, I have to say, Danielle, it was such a draw just hearing about your excitement, which I know is part of the energy that RARC, but I think being able to be part of something new, to create something, build things, training grants. So this could be, undergraduates, graduate student training grants, postdocs, early career. There's so many opportunities there, and pulling together people across the Rutgers campuses to do this was really exciting. I was, I think Rutgers, really is supporting addiction research, and you can see the resources that they're putting into it, which, translates to what is really important is that we can do the things that we want to do. So, you can sit around a table and have all sorts of great ideas, but the RARC has the support to do this. And that was just so attractive to me.
Yes, and I have to say, it's been about a year and a half since I joined Rutgers, and I've told many of the faculty this, but I continue to be as happy about my decision as I was on the day that I signed my offer letter. And a large part of that really is because of the amazing community of faculty, trainees who really are so collaborative and excited about working together to build this community and all the interesting things that we can do and ways that we can have an impact. And as you mentioned, training grants are one of the areas that we're working on expanding. So we have two right now, two T32s, both of which are in the area largely of neuroscience, and we're looking at building out other T32 programs. And I'm really excited to work with you on that and think about other areas where we have expertise and could really also expand our training. So in genetics and epidemiology and longitudinal studies and methods and those kinds of things. And so I think that'll be a lot of fun to work together on when you officially join us.
Yes, I agree.
So there are also a lot of junior, early career faculty, trainees who are part of the RARC. You are an established person in the field. In fact, when I was at the annual conference this summer, the Research Society on Alcoholism, the number of folks that came up and said, you all are so fortunate to have Kristy joining you. She's really just such a pillar in our field. And so I want to reflect that to you. But I'm wondering if you have advice for early career individuals who are working in the addiction space.
Yes. So I love working with trainees. They have so much energy. I think one thing I might recommend is just think about it. It's not a race, it's a marathon. And so this is, it's your career. And so, you can't, I think the worst thing you can do is sort of stop and say, like, I have so much I need to be accomplishing, because, that can just be paralyzing. And so, I think some early career people, researchers may kind of, feel like have imposter syndrome, look around them, I'm not being as productive as I could be. But really, to me, I think it's taking it one day at a time and saying, like, what do I want to work on today that is going to achieve my goals? And maybe it's one of those days where you're doing references for a paper because you just are not feeling it. Other days it's delving into the literature and sort of getting a grasp. And sort of related to that, I would say trainees, one of the best things you can do is go to a coffee shop. I don't know if people still do that. They did in the 90s. Go somewhere with, the idea that you're going to sit down for a few hours and you're just going to read the literature and you're going to get ideas, because you cannot write unless you read what's going on. You're not going to be able to come up with those great new ideas, new to you. And so I think, give yourself permission to just sit and read. That is one of the things that, when I start a grant, the first thing I do is I just delve into the literature and just, soak it all up. Another thing I might recommend to trainees is that you love what you're doing, and, find an area that you love. And then don't try to, if you're looking for external grant funding, for example, don't try to find a research topic that you think is going to get funded. Don't cater to what other people are telling you, because at the end of the day, when you get the grant money, you have to do the project. So if you write a grant that you think NIH is going to love, or that your colleagues are urging you to write, and then you get the grant and you're not excited about it, that's 2 years or 5 years where you're not going to be happy. So find a project that you love. That's sort of the ultimate goal is, you want to have the skills, you want to develop the skills as a trainee so that you can get to the stage where you choose the projects that you love.
I love all of those pieces of advice so much. I had a senior person say to me early in my career, don't chase the grant funding or else you'll always be ping-ponging around after different topics. And the reality is nobody can predict what's going to get funded and not funded.
Right.
And I also love your advice about really, taking time for yourself and not feeling this urgency to produce. I think that sometimes the reading, like you talked about, just reading the literature and spending time in it feels like, oh, that's a luxury I don't have time for. But I totally agree. You can't be a good scientist. You can't generate those ideas, place them in the context of the field, et cetera, without, having a good understanding of what we already know. And, with respect to that time management piece, that's one of the things that I think a lot about too. And I'll often have people say to me who've seen my CV or my bio, oh my gosh, how do you write so many grants and have so many papers? You must work all the time. And I really try and correct that misconception. And, I'm the first to say, actually, that's not at all true. I am a huge believer in work-life balance. And I also know that when I try to work all the time, I become really inefficient with how I'm working. And so if I don't take time to spend time with my friends and my family, then, I can't really sit down and churn out papers or whatever it is that I need to be working on. And the times that, like you say, I do have to work and it's, during the day and I'm just kind of not feeling it. It's that whole giving yourself permission to be like, I thought I was going to work on this paper this morning, but I didn't get a good night of sleep. I'm finding myself unable to focus. And so I am instead going to do this boring thing that's on my checklist,
Exactly.
I think figuring out that balance, that every senior person I know, sort of takes that tact of how are you going to really efficiently use your time as opposed to feeling this pressure of, I just have to be working all the time.
Right. Yep. I agree.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. I know that everybody is incredibly excited to have you as part of the RARC, and we look forward to seeing you at upcoming events.
Thank you so much. I am really excited as well.